Hi everyone, this is Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host for Metaphysically Speaking. Thank you for joining us. And today we've got so many things to talk about. One of them is going to be the meaning of Pluto and Capricorn, which we addressed last time, but I didn't quite finish because we ran out of time. And the fact that the United States is born under the sign of Cancer. Does that have a meaning? You betcha. So we're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about, I think we're going to talk about the imprinting versus a haunting and how the recent Hurricane Sandy played an important part. You're saying, what is she talking about? An imprint versus a haunting? How did Smashing Rockaway Beach and so many of the barrier islands in Long Island and New Jersey and southern Connecticut, how does that have anything to do with anything? Well, that's why I'm here. So make sure that you check us out on Facebook on speak.com. And you can see some old television shows that we've put up there that I've done for years. You can listen to past radio shows and the current radio shows. If you're in the Sarasota area, you can catch us on WTMY on Saturday and Sunday evenings. And I think we got that covered. Twitter, on Twitter. Okay. YouTube, wherever. Just type in metaspeak.com and there will be.
Hi, I'm Shawnee.
This is my executive producer, and she's here helping me run the show because if I touch any electronic equipment in this state, I usually break it. And the other thing is I can't focus on the topic and handle electronics at the same time. So she's fabulous at that, and that's why she's helping me. Plus, she's great company.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let us first address the astrology. And I don't have the astrology of the United States. I have it somewhere. But if you saw the filing system in my office here, you would be appalled. But the United States was born under the sun sign of Cancer. Now, I have had everybody tell me, and I've read articles, I've seen television shows where people are proving that it was founded and signed, the Declaration of Independence was signed on July 1st. But then not everyone was able to make it. Don't forget, there were no trains, there were no planes, no taxis, no limousines. Horseback. That was it. Or walking. You're saying, walking? Do you know how many people walked across the United States to lay claim to poor Indian territory and came across the entire continent by walking? You're saying, what about the covered wagons? Well, actually, covered wagons were so uncomfortable and miserable that people had all kinds of neck problems, back problems, arm problems, shoulder problems, teeth problems, because their teeth would rattle. We're thinking big, fabulous stagecoach that you might see in a Christmas show. These were rickety things with wooden wheels, basic wooden frame, no cushions unless somebody grabbed a blanket, horses that didn't want to be schlepped across the United States. It was miserable. Anybody who survived the journey deserved an award. Although the Native Americans who were displaced wouldn't say so, but just in terms of travel difficulties. Today we get in the car and we drive to the supermarket. In the old days, they'd put their shoes on and they'd walk. So travel was extraordinarily different. So therefore not everyone could arrive on the 1st. Some arrived on the 2nd, some arrived on the 3rd. I've heard some actually even finish signing on the 6th. So what do? You have to make a combined chart. You have to make a chart for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then you have to make a combined chart. And that is a project. I don't know anyone who's actually done it. I'm not doing it anytime soon. That would take over a week to accomplish because you'd be getting a headache in between. So then you'd have to understand which house everything falls. And those of you who don't really know anything about astrology, for people who read something that says don't get out of bed today and you have an important meeting, obviously that's not practical. What it means is you're being squared. Certain planets are squaring in your chart. Squares, think of a big block of ice and you run up against it, you're going to knock yourself out. Okay. If it's a sextile, think of it as a wheel making things move faster. How do you make a sextile? North, south, east, west, 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Okay? That's a sextile. Think of a trine, which is like a triangle. The pyramid shape. That makes things energized. So trines and sextiles make things work well. If you run into a block of ice, which is a square, you're going to be unhappy. So squares create objects in front of you. Some are more difficult than others. So what does it mean if it says stay in bed? It means that you have to leave for your appointment a little early because you're going to run into every red light. It means that there are going to be maniacs on the road texting and talking on the phone instead of paying attention to driving. It means that there's going to be some kind of accident or problem, or there was an accident. People have to examine everything as they're going. They're calling it rubbernecking. There's going to be something wrong. Or if it's a doctor's appointment like I went to one day and the doctor hadn't even left the hospital yet. Well, that was cranky. Fortunately, when I go to the doctor now for an examination, I just bring a book. I make myself the last appointment of the day, I get my reading done or several magazines I haven't gotten to, and I don't get myself excited. What is the point of spitting in the wind? It's ridiculous. So, a chart is simply a roadmap to your life. And you're going to say, well, doesn't everybody have one? Yes. A chart is determined by the date, the time, and the location. Do twins have the same chart? Well, they might differ by a matter of minutes. They might differ by a matter of an hour or two. Sometimes, whether it's kittens and puppies or people, twins, triplets don't arrive at exactly the same time. So, they will have different minutes. And depending upon whether it's the end of the chart or the very beginning of the chart, really has to be done carefully. And remember what some nurses have told me, that they generally approximate the time. Unless they're told, or unless they're involved in astrology and metaphysics, they don't really think it's that important to be exact. So they will look up and say, oh, I was in there, what, about an hour ago? Well, maybe it was 5 o'clock, maybe it was 4. I'll just write 4:03. So if you have your chart done and it doesn't feel anything like you, I would have the person do the chart again. You can get it done by a place called astrocartography. I don't get any funds, any reimbursement. And then you would call them and say, try it for 4:30, try it for 5, try it for 3:30. And whichever one feels more like you, that's the one I would go with.
And you have to tell them Eastern Standard Time.
Eastern Standard Time. You have to tell, yeah.
You have to give them the location.
And
as well.
they will determine whether or not it's daylight savings time, because even when daylight savings time was implemented during the war, not all counties in all states went along with it. So they were on one time, and you're assuming that they would be daylight savings time, but the people who do this professionally, no, they have records. So they can tell you exactly what time you were born. So it means it's a menu. Your chart is a menu for you. If you look, there are 12 houses, and when I do charts, which I'm not doing anymore, if I do charts, I have my system set up, which I got originally from a woman in Thonotosassa years ago when I went for astrology lessons, and I had to cast a chart. And I don't count and add really well, so I'm at a disadvantage. But she had the different definitions. I've added to those definitions and made the wheel larger so that you can read it. And I color code everything, so even if I get taken by aliens tomorrow and you have your chart by me, you will know how to interpret it yourself. Because I have the meanings in each house, and then I have down with the sun, the rising, the moon, Jupiter, what it means to you, and the degrees. And so I tell you exactly what your menu is and how to best handle it. Even if there is a disadvantage in your chart, I will point that out to you. So your chart is a menu. Everything that draws breath has a chart. Your pussycat has a chart. Your dog has a chart. Your parrot has a chart. Your home building and buying has a chart. If you're building a house, I looked at the astrology and picked the day that I wanted them to dig first. So even if they wouldn't do anything else, I wanted them to be on the property getting ready to construct. The second date is the date that you close. So you have a combined chart for a house you build. The same thing with renovations. When was the house built? When did you buy it? When did you start your renovations? And when did you finish your reservations? Renovations. I'm saying reservations. I must be hungry. Renovations. Thank you.
Yeah.
So therefore, it has meaning because everything has a birth energy. And that birth energy is the first air that you breathe. without getting into a whole controversy at the moment, because we've talked about it before, you do not, to me, right to life is right to life for the person who's here. The baby is born, it becomes a baby when it's out of the uterus and is self-sustaining. Obviously, it can't feed itself, but it can breathe on its own. It doesn't need special medical care, special implements to keep it going. When it draws its first healthy breath, that's when it is a baby. Before then, it's a fetus. This is biologically accurate. You may not like it, but it's biologically accurate. And any doctor who is honorable will admit it. I've had this discussion with many doctors. And so therefore, if you are drawing breath, that is the moment that you should have your time recorded on your chart, on your birth certificate. It should be at the church, but the church Catholic Church, your Catholic Church used to frown on astrology, not so much anymore. And I will tell you something very fascinating. And so if you were born in a Catholic hospital, they wouldn't have the time down purposely. Yeah. A friend of mine many years ago had a private audience with the Pope. He is a well-known astrologer and psychic in New York. And when he was taken into the private quarters, guess what the rug was in the center of the room? A gigantic astrology wheel with the bull, with beautiful artwork tapestried into the rug, a massive rug that was hundreds and hundreds of years old. The Catholic Church is very well aware of astrology. And just like it admitted that there could be people on other planets, and I know they're not hoping to colonize them, they're looking forward. The blood that they've created over the years, including the Protestants against the Catholics, and the Jews against anybody else who didn't agree with them in the Middle East, and the Islamics today, and again earlier with the Christians, all those religions have blood on their hands. So if they choose to modernize, they will move forward with civilization. If they choose not to modernize, they will be lost, because the planet is moving forward. Now with Pluto, which is called the house of the occult or hidden knowledge, there is nothing wrong with the word occult. It simply means hidden knowledge, knowledge for the Gnostics, which comes from the word gnosis, which is wisdom. The Gnostics were a group of people who followed Jesus to the letter. And hopefully we're going to be talking about Buddhism. I don't know if we'll get to it on this show or another show, but Jesus basically taught a lot of Buddhism. How did he know? Because when he disappeared, quote unquote, he went to Tibet and Lhasa. How do I know this? Because they have the records that are 2,000 years old there of a visit of a man named Yeshua from Nazareth, from Jerusalem, from Bethlehem. So therefore, if you look at the Buddhism and if you look at Jesus, you're going to see a close association. So what does Pluto have to do with the United States? Pluto has to do with everyone. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, didn't they just throw Pluto out as a planet? Well, sorry, it's been there. And whether they want to call it a giant asteroid, actually they don't even know what it is. So to throw Pluto out is ridiculous because it has an energy grid. And that energy grid is of deep spiritual secrets, esoteric information. Esoteric means for those who deeply know, who truly spiritually know. Capricorn, Pluto is in Capricorn right now, and the upside of Capricorn is it's organized, it wants everything neat and tidy. When my cousin was here visiting me a couple of years ago, I didn't have to clean the kitchen. She was right behind me. Zoom, zoom, zoom. It looked like nobody lived here. I would like to have her back again to help clean up. But the downside is depression, irritability, fear of not being organized. Its partner, 12 signs, 6 partners, its partner is Cancer. Where Capricorn says, no matter how much I love it, it'll never work out. Cancer, on the other hand, says, I'll just love it. I'll just give it more hugs and more kisses and more time and take more garbage and it'll just be fine. Well, that's not true. It's also the sign of mothering. Even though Virgo is represented by the Virgin, that is not the mother. 3 stages of life are the child, the adult, who is the breeding stage, and the elder. The woman was called the crone. The man was called the elder. In whatever translation you want to have. So Capricorn says, everything I do is a waste of time. Nothing I do is ever going to work out. I try my best. I organize. I do everything right. And it's never good enough. Cancer says, of course it's good enough. I haven't cleaned the house in 5 years. Who cares? Well, the cat cares because it's down there with the dirt. The dog cares because he can't find his bone. You should care. It says love will just take care of everything. But love, divine love, will take care of everything. Not sexual love. Not ego love. Ego love is, I'll love you if you'll love me. That's a selfish love. That's not even love. That's looking for a deal. The good side of Cancer is it's patient, it's tolerant, it wants others to join in. It's the positive aspect of femininity, where men are conquerors, as I've said on the show before. They want to be the king of the hill, they want to be the top king, they want to be the leader, they want to be the emperor, they want to conquer and kill and mutilate and maim and whatever they need to do to get what they want. Women don't rule like that. Women rule by consensus. They want everyone's opinion. Bill Clinton was very famous for this. President Obama, and God help us, let him get reelected. Bill Clinton and Barack Obama are like this. They are listeners. They look at other people's points of view. They take all the information in. They do their own research. They go into some kind of a prayer or meditative state, and they come up with the right decision. This is a feminine aspect. Women nurture the tribe. Women nurture the community. That doesn't mean women should stay home and not work. If that's your talent and ability, go do what you want. We have a choice in this life. Some women should be mothers, some women shouldn't be mothers. But the United States mothers immigrants. Even the Native Americans came here over 10,000 years ago. They've traced Pacific Islander energy into some of the Indians. And we're going to pick that up when we come back. This is Linda Bennett with Metaphysically Speaking. Stay right here. And this is Linda Bennett back with you with more Metaphysically Speaking. And don't forget, you can catch us on Facebook, the World Wide Web, on Twitter, and if you're in the Sarasota area, you can catch us on Saturday and Sunday night on WTMF.
TMY.
TMY.
Yeah.
TMY. My mistake. Okay, so the United States is born under the sign of Cancer. Pluto, the house of the occult, trying to teach you things that you desperately need to know to make your spiritual progress, but are resistant to. Because you think, well, then I might not be able to go to church with my family every Sunday. Well, you can go, and you can do your own prayers and meditations. Nobody's telling you can't go to a church. You shouldn't go to a place that tells you, like down here in the Pinellas County area. Years ago, 2 women came to me separately, didn't know each other, and they told me that they were leaving their Protestant denomination church because their minister every Sunday led prayers for the death of the Catholic Pope and for me. Out loud every Sunday, and each one of them said the same thing. The first time he mentioned this, everybody gasped. People looked around. Some looked very smug and were very happy to do it. Others were appalled. Each one of them said they were leaving. They found other places to go where there wasn't hatred. And they had watched my show, and they listened to what their minister was saying and made their own evaluations. He was preaching hatred and superiority. I was preaching love and getting along with people. And they'd much rather listen to me than to him. They both went to different denominations than where they were going, and they were very happy because the same thing that I was teaching, they were teaching in their church. So if you are happy with the philosophy, and it's very difficult to say, well, the philosophy of the entire religion. It's like the battle going on in the Catholic religion where they want everybody to follow the same thing. They want everybody to say the same thing, do the same thing. No birth control. The mother can die. Make the kids survive. No birth control at all. No remarriage. No divorce. Here's a way you can get divorced in the Catholic Church. Are you ready? Move a little closer to your radio. You get an annulment. Yeah. So the kids are going to be furious because they're going to say, what are you going to do? Deny that we were born under a marriage? There's always a way. However, there are many priests who are enlightened. I've had many of them as clients. And they've led their congregation the way they see best. Have they gotten in trouble? Well, if they had an enlightened bishop that they reported to, no. If they didn't have an enlightened bishop, yes. And 2 of them actually relocated to other states because they heard from friends and other people they knew that that was a more harmonious and like-minded philosophy than where they were. So if you are going to the Catholic Church and you have an open-minded priest who admits freely in Christmas and Easter that Jesus was Jewish and he wasn't the first Christian, then I would stay. If you're in the Jewish religion and the rabbi is screaming that we are the chosen ones, basically screw everybody else, run the other way. Wherever you are, if anybody's preaching hatred and superiority, run. That's not what the United States is about. The United States is think like the giant mother energy. And she gathers about her child after child. She takes in adopted children. She takes in stray and wayward children. And she nurtures them and she teaches them and she reads to them and she guides them. She teaches them how to count. She teaches them the alphabet. She teaches them manners. She teaches them grooming. She teaches them how to get to school. She teaches them philosophies in life. That is the energy of Cancer. That is the positive energy of Cancer. Not the, oh, well, I'll just love it enough, even when it's a bad situation and you cannot win. So you're saying, Linda, are you saying that we should just throw people out who don't go along with our philosophy? If it's a drunk, if it's a drug addict, if it's a gambler, they will take you in the gutter and the sewer with them. It's called tough love. I come from 2 alcoholic parents. I will tell you, there is no winning. I used to beg my mother to put me up for adoption.
It's not funny, but it's...
I first heard about adoption when she kidnapped me down to Miami. And the little girl next door was adopted. And I said to her mother, what's adopted? And she said, well, her mother couldn't keep her. So we went out into the adoption center. And we saw her and we fell in love with her. And they showed me her little baby picture. She was one of those adorable little babies, just going to squeeze her little cheeks. They looked like giant little peaches. And she was such a happy, loved child. And these were older parents. She was 9 and they were in their 50s. And that was very unusual in those days for older parents to adopt babies. So I heard about this, and all the way home I thought, oh my God, she could put me up for adoption. I could have another place to live. I wouldn't be kidnapped. Oh my God, that would be great. And so I said to her, I just found it, and I can't remember the little girl's name. It was Miami Beach. And she said, I said, can I be adopted? She said, what? No, I gave birth to you. I said, I know all about that, the 36-hour labor and the cesarean, but could you put me up for adoption? Well, she was stunned, and she said, why? I said, because you hate me. I don't like to be beaten, and I want to go elsewhere. So what happened? I got another beating. I mentioned it several other times, but each time was another beating, so I thought, let's cool it. The adoption energy is the energy of the United States, bringing people from all corners of the world. I wish they'd be more inclusive with the people who were here first. I have a problem with the word discover. I was saying earlier to Shawnee that Columbus didn't discover America. You discover something that's been lost. You discover something that's never been found. The United States was sitting here, not the United States, it was a continent with Mexico and Canada, which wasn't called Mexico and Canada at the time. This giant continent of subarctic temperatures down to drop dead, it's too hot temperatures. Pardon me, and millions and millions of different Indian tribes were here. And the explorers did their best to wipe them out very quickly. So I wish the United States would do a better job, and I also wish some of the Indian tribes would do a better job in losing the booze, getting off the drugs, and sending their kids to school. They can still be bilingual. My father spoke 5 languages, didn't have an accent, and so therefore you can go to school and still maintain your Indian culture, not lose that. But you have to teach your children, you have to bring them into this year, into the light of this civilization. So the United States takes people from all over, and they listen to people, and they try to accommodate them, the United States people, whether it's the mayor or the governor or whatever of a community, and they try to accommodate them, and they welcome the new Mexican restaurant, they welcome the Italian restaurant, the Chinese restaurant, every kind of restaurant. If you go to New York City, there's no food on the planet that you can't find somewhere. Same thing with London and Paris. There's food from different nations in these cities. Ottawa, I understand, is the same way, in Montreal, Canada. So when I talked about the fact that Cancer likes to listen and to incorporate things that work, not incorporate things that don't work, President Obama and former President Bill Clinton are very much the Cancer type energy. They're not born under the sign of Cancer, I believe. I think Bill Clinton was a Leo, I'm not sure. And I don't know what President Obama is. I think he's an Aries. Is he an Aries? I don't remember. We don't remember. Doesn't matter. The reason I'm saying this is because their style is to call in experts, listen to everyone's opinion, take those opinions in. They're both, I would call Bill Clinton a religious, spiritual person. I would call President Obama just a spiritual person. Doesn't matter to him which church he goes to. He gets an energy from that, but he takes this in and talks to his soul, which is attached to the God force, or that's what we really are. We're not blondes or brunettes or black or white or orange or yellow or green or purple or tall or short. We are sparks of the God force. And agnostics, and what's the other one? Atheists. Agnostics say, if there's a God, then prove it to me. I say just look around every day. Atheists are people who say there's no such thing as a God, no such thing as a higher power. You're dead, you're dead. I got a surprise for them. I've had too many near-death experiences. There are too many books on the market of people who've had near-death experiences. I don't have the name of it, but the Katie Couric show, I think it was, featured two people. A little boy who was obviously a Christian minister in his last lifetime because he was busy talking about Bible things that he had seen, and a female doctor who knows quite well the difference between being under anesthesia and being dead. And she was dead, I think, for 40 minutes.
So these two people had a near-death
experience? Two people had near-death experiences, and they came back.
Wow.
And they've both written books. The father of the little boy wrote the book. So there's too many people out there, too much history around the world. Don't tell me there's no such thing as reincarnation in past life, because even the Catholic Church used to teach it. Until Constantine said, no, we don't have power over people if they know there's another lifetime. So it became a sin. It became heretical to believe in reincarnation. But every priest I've ever talked to believes in reincarnation. They all talk about it back at the seminary. Their experiences, many of them had near-death experiences. So the United States is a Cancer-gathering, mothering type of energy. Bill Clinton, President Obama, both make decisions the same way. They take the best information, they check the best resources, and they use their intuition and that knowledge to make their decisions. That is a very Cancer way. That is why they were such effective presidents. That is why Bill Clinton started the initiative, the Clinton Initiative, because that gathers people from all around the world. In order to be invited back the second year, you have to prove that you fulfilled your commitments that you made the first year. And then the second, third, fourth, fifth year. I think it's like 10 years or 5 years or 6 years rather in progress now. They get business people, they get school teachers, they get local pizza parlor owners, they get large manufacturers, they get idea people, they get computer people, people from all over the world. And they make commitments. And one of the things they do is make small business loans, the micro loans, which I really like, to countries, especially to women, where they can buy a sewing machine, they can buy thread, they can buy fabric, and there has not been so far a record of the women not paying all or most of the money back. It is incredible. And we're talking about sometimes it's a $25 loan. A big loan is $100. And generally, They don't ask for the big loan write-off. They ask for the small amount. Then they build on that as they're paying back the loan from the Clinton Initiative and other programs like that. And then they get a further loan, and then they enlarge. And they have other women in their community participating in their business. And this is a very successful way of doing business. And President Obama is a big advocate of this. Now, I'm going to move to Canada if George Romney gets in, just as a...
George Romney?
No, George was the father. This is Mitt Romney. It's so hard to identify him. He's got nothing inside. There's no brains, no intelligence behind the eyes. Sorry, guess who I'm in favor of. Why am I in favor of President Obama? Because everything he started is coming to fruition, and because the type of leadership he provides. I don't want someone who owes his soul to the company store, so to speak, which is what Mitt Romney does at this point. I'm sorry if I'm irritating you, but I'm telling you the truth. He's made so many promises. Wherever he is, he makes a different position statement. That's not a leader we can trust. That is not a leader. That is a Cancer-type country energy. The leader who brings consensus, listens carefully, makes excellent decisions. John McCain and Mitt Romney were against catching bin Laden. They said, well, you can't go into Pakistan. You'll irritate the Pakistani government. Quite frankly, I want to irritate the Pakistani government. They've been harboring terrorists for years in their mountain border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. So I'm very proud of President Obama. I'm very proud of the leaders and the military officers and the generals and the colonels and everybody else who said, let's go for it, we can do it, and this is how we can do it. And he got bin Laden. He has wiped out more terrorists in 3.5 years than George Bush ever did in the 8 years he was in office. And don't forget, he got us there to begin with. So if when you hear this, Mitt Romney is the president, I'll be moving the show up to Canada. Because I don't want to live under a government with a man who's made so many promises to big business that the small business person doesn't have a chance. The statistics came out that if you deal with a big box store, whether it's Target, Home Depot, doesn't matter, Walmart, my least favorite, the money goes to the corporate offices. If you deal with a small store, a small hardware store in your community, if you deal with a dress shop in your community, if you deal with a bakery in your community, the money stays in the community. Why? Because they buy locally. They buy local produce. They buy local fabric. The big box places get it from one giant resource, and it's never in your hometown. So think about that when you're voting on, yeah, let's get a big box store here. It's really convenient. We'll drive to the next town and go to the big box store. Leave your town so that everybody prospers. So this is also part of the confrontation of Pluto being in Capricorn with its partner Cancer, the United States, being forced to make right, good decisions for the citizens. All the citizens, not just Wall Street, not just big business partners, not the people who buy companies, tear them, sell them off in shreds, make huge profits, send whatever's left off to China or India or wherever they do, Pakistan. I got panties that were made in Guatemala. I didn't know they were making panties in Guatemala. These panties started off years ago. I won't give you the name. They're beautiful panties, lovely panties. And you're saying to yourselves, she's talking about panties. The point is they're made in Costa Rica, Guatemala, Thailand. They used to be made in New York City, and they were $10 at the time. I won't even tell you the price now, and they're made horribly. There is no craftsmanship or workmanship. They're just thrown together. Frankly, I'd rather pay $20 and have good workmanship on my clothing. So this is the challenge that the United States is facing. If you have Capricorn or Cancer in your chart, you are constantly being, tested. Are you going to do the right thing? Are you going to do the right thing for you? I'll go back to the addiction. Yes, people cure themselves of addiction with help 99% of the time. My father stopped drinking on his own because he got tired of that lifestyle. He's the only one I know. But it took them years and years of destruction to do it. You never let an addict say, I'll stop doing it because I love you. Because the minute they get mad at you, they're back again. Pluto and Capricorn is saying to all Capricorns, cheer up. Get with the program. Use your organizational skills to create love, to create goodness for others, to create harmony. Welcome back, everyone. This is Linda Bennett, your spiritual counselor and psychic host, Metaphysically speaking. Sorry, I still have a little bit of a frog in my throat. I don't know where that expression came from. How many people wind up with frogs in their throat?
That's a great question.
I mean, where did that come from? Okay, so we finished off with talking about the test for people with Cancer and Capricorn in their charts. And remember, you're on the same planet everybody else is. So you're also confronting this, whether it's your partner, your children, your parents, your next door neighbors, and also the spirit of the planet. New people are saying, the spirit of the planet, it's a rock. It's a molten rock spinning. It has a consciousness. Some people call it Gaia. Some people call it Mother Earth. It has a consciousness. Everything has a consciousness, a soul. It was created by something far more intelligent, far larger, whatever you want to call it. God, the light, the force, the being, doesn't matter. I want to know where that came from. I don't know. I don't care where God came from. I want to know where the thing that made God came from. And where did that come from? And how did that come to be? I was listening to, I can't remember his name. He's the Japanese, Hawaiian, I think, scientist and astrophysicist that was on a TV show the other night. And he was saying, some scientists say there was the great big void. Well, you can't have a void all by itself. It has to be contained. What contained it? Where did that come from? Think about that for a while, people. But Capricorn and Cancer are battling it out for spiritual survival. Remember, sometimes you have to make the right spiritual decision. And it seems that it's the wrong practical decision. But you will discover in the long run, the spiritual decision that you made correctly outweighs and will outmaneuver the ego decision. Always. The light is never wrong. May take you a little while to uncover it, but the light is never wrong. Now, so many people have said to me, how come Sandy happened? Well, the planet is alive. The moon is dead, but still has a memory of its consciousness. But the earth is alive. It moves, it breathes. Volcanoes, earthquakes, storms are a natural part of the life force. This is a water-earth planet. Where you have water, where you have earth, you're going to have movement. We understand plate tectonics. We understand that weather and wind, think of the butterfly effect. If a butterfly flaps its wings in New York, it'll be felt in Australia and Europe. And literally that is true because it moves molecules. And there might be another butterfly down the road and it flaps its wings, or a bird flaps its wings, and that adds to it. And eventually it creates a great wind, which can manifest into a storm. But generally it's high and low pressure and moisture and temperature. Now, many of us in the state of Florida have been visualizing and meditating for years to keep hurricanes away and to push them back out into the ocean. I think that's one of the reasons that Florida fared so well with the Sandy storm. And also the way the barometric pressure, another 3 storm energies met. And New York, New Jersey, Lower Connecticut. I have friends in Upper Connecticut or Upper Middle Connecticut. They're fine. They lost power for 5 hours because somebody down the road lost their power and it was all on the same line. Pennsylvania, another friend lost power there for a few hours. no other problems. But it was a miserable storm nonetheless. They've been blessed on election day that there's no snow. As far as I know, by 12 o'clock today, there was no snow. Because people will drive in the rain, they don't want to drive in the snow. And frankly, many of them shouldn't because they don't know how to drive in the snow. But that's something else. So Sandy wasn't out to get anyone. But Sandy was performing a natural routine. You think routine can be every day, it can be every week, it can be every 10 years, every 100 years. Routine cleansing. What do I mean by that? Well, it cleanses dust and pollen out of the air. Many of us are still sneezing from whatever was brought over from Africa and lands in Florida. Every time there's a storm, we get the African dust, especially at certain times of year. And the summer here is one of them, which of course coordinates with hurricanes. But I was explaining the difference before to someone between a haunting and an imprint. A haunting, and you've seen the paranormal show and all this other stuff, where they go in with their little e-meters and all kinds of, not e-meters, that's Scientology stuff, their little voice recorders and their night recording vision equipment and all that stuff. And then they see orbs, which are little balls of light, or filmy type person outlines, and they hear voices. Yes, people, a lot of people don't go into the light. The Ghost Whisperer with, what's her name? Jennifer Love Hewitt talked about that a lot on her show. Where some people choose to stay behind, whether they watch over a loved one or whether they're so angry they want to get even with someone and they want to make somebody's life miserable, and they stay behind, and they are active, live spirits. The spirit never dies, the physical body does. Just like you change your clothes, you don't die when you change your clothes. Your spirit remains, the clothes change. So that is a haunting. And actually, dogs and cats can stay behind as well. They may stay behind for a loved one. All the pussycats I've ever had are still with me. And a couple of weeks ago, they all jumped on the bed, one after the other, boom, 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 and you can see the footprints on the down comforter, which is really hysterical. Little footprints everywhere. And my cat Angel was watching them like she was watching old friends. And she was watching them and watching them. And she put her head down. She sort of kept her eyes going. And then you saw the footprints going over to Angel, and she just settled down and went back to sleep. So it can be animals as well. An imprint is something different. It's like an endless loop tape. This is what you see in many of the old castles in Europe. This is what you see in, say, the Civil War battles, the reenactments, any of the old wars, any of the places where horrors took place. And you can also have a combination. And how do you know this? Because a haunting will interact. It'll either come closer, it'll try to frighten you, or they'll move away, or some people actually have felt pussycats rubbing up against them, or dogs, or they've heard a bark. And that will the haunting will interact in some way. The imprint is the same time, the same day, every day, in the same way. And it just passes right by. There are many places in the Hawaiian Islands where there are imprints. The Civil War, the wars in Europe, many people report hearing and seeing the filmy version of a soldier or a bunch of soldiers parading. They'll hear the clump, 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 clump of the footsteps, and they walk right through them. Or they'll walk right past them, and there's no interaction. That means the souls have passed on. But the horror and the emotion, or the fear and anticipation, the reality of what happened is so intense that it actually created an imprint and the surrounding area, whether it's a building, whether it's a small portion of a forest, whether it's down a street, especially streets that are old, especially where there are old buildings. In America, something is considered old if it's 30 years. In Europe, many people live in houses that are 400 and 500 years old. Why? Because they want to? Because that's what's available? Because they've been smart enough not to tear their villages down? Some of the same families live in exactly the same places as their ancestors who built it. That's fabulous. To me, that is fantastic. Plus, there's no mortgage. So a haunting is where there are live spirits. An imprint is where the spirits have left, but the energy, it's like a photograph was taken with a movie camera was set up, and it just plays over and over and over, timed exactly the same way every day. Now, can you have a combination of? Yes. You generally do not get an imprint for several generations, because after a while, the universe gets tired of the souls hanging around and will create an earthquake, volcano, a storm. The hauntings eventually go away. If not enough emotion is left behind, there won't be an imprint. If it is, there will be an imprint. So how do you get rid of these imprints? How do you get rid of a haunting that has ugly inspiration of hatred? Because that contaminates the area. What happens? People argue with each other, they fight with each other, they start wars with each other, they lie, they cheat, they steal, they get drunk, they do drugs. It becomes a nightmare. The worse the behavior, the more of a cleansing has to take place to clean it out, literally clean it out. So Sandy, in the areas that were hardest hit, was doing its best job. First of all, it's a natural energy, earthly phenomena. And it went in areas that need to be cleaned out. I was talking to somebody earlier about Boardwalk Empire, which I think is an excellent show on HBO. Do I like the violence? No. Quite frankly, I love shows like Harry Potter, where nobody's garroted, there's no drug deals, nobody's getting stoned, nobody's getting drunk. I like normal kind of environments. The Boardwalk Empire talks a lot about the Irish Catholics coming to this country and the Italian Catholics coming to this country and how the battles were set up between them and how the early Jews were coming to this country and how they fought with each other, and they went into organized crime because they couldn't get other work. An uncle of mine, when I was a little girl, used to tell me that when he was a little boy, he'd go for a job for summer when school was out, and it would say, "No Irish need apply." And many of those signs were put out by Protestant Irish. And what they didn't want was what they called the Shanty Irish, which were the Catholic Irish. Ugly, isn't it? No Irish need apply. Same thing when I moved here to Florida. I drove up north of where I live, and there were signs in gas stations, hand-drawn signs that said, "No women's," literally no women's, and "no niggers." I stopped the car the first time and pulled over. I thought I was going to have a car accident. Fortunately, it wasn't a busy road. I was shocked. This was in 1980. 1980! Space mechanisms are up in the sky. We have colleges and universities. We had the Concorde flying. Remember, that was that big plane that crossed the ocean in 3 hours? It made so much noise, you'd have a heart attack listening to it. I was laying on the beach at my cousin's. They lived on the beach at the time. And I went there after my divorce, and I was going to relax and rest. I was like 3 people on the beach. It was gorgeous. It was in the Rockaways, by the way. And no, it wasn't. It was East Atlantic Beach. Doesn't matter. I'm relaxing on the beach. The sun is beautiful and nice and warm. All of a sudden, I thought, oh my God, we're having a tsunami. I sat up like a rocket, and this sound coming from the east towards us, because they live near LaGuardia. I could not believe the sound. And Kennedy Airport, that was coming. It was literally like the sky was opening up.
Was it the Concorde?
It was the Concorde. I knew what it looked like, so I packed up my stuff because half an hour later, I heard another roar. I went back to the house. I said, girls, isn't there something you forgot to mention? Didn't you forget to mention the Concorde? Oh, yeah, well, we're used to it. Well, I still can't hear. Anyway, does that mean all the people who were affected by the storm are awful? No. But it means that a lot of the crime, what was that Martin Scorsese film with the Irish, the 5 Points, and the show on, I think it's A&E Bio, no, it's on BBC America, Coppers. That talks about the Irish Catholics in New York and what they went through. That was not very United States and cancer energy, was it? Welcoming. It was very hateful energy. And a lot of those battles, you think that the Crips and the Bloods have wars, so did the Catholics, the Italians, the Jews, killing each other, bang, bang, shoot, shoot, blood, strife, misery, blowing up apartments, blowing up buildings, blowing each other up. Well, a lot of that is washed away. There was a place that is now demolished in the Rockaways that used to be known as the cemetery. It wasn't purposefully a cemetery, but it became one for where the mob buried all the bodies. And before the mob, the Italian mob, the Irish mob. So all of those memories have been washed away. Are the people appreciative of that right now? No, they want food. They want clothing. They want their homes back. They want to know how they're going to get a home back. Are they responsible for the mortgage for a house they no longer have because the property isn't even there? But this is where the United States can raise itself up and rise to the occasion by saying, we are helping you. This is what America's all about. And I hope and pray that we continue on the right path, that we continue on the path of inclusiveness, not exclusiveness for big business, but inclusiveness, the birthright of the United States of bringing people together. Because this, believe it or not, is an important part. This storm was an important part of the rebirthing of this country by wiping away old memories of hatreds and wars and crimes. And the United States is supposed to be inclusive and a loving country. It's a great experiment in the solar system. And I just want you to know, if you open up your hearts and minds to God's universal truth, you will know that God and the angels are always with you. Linda Bennett.